Cool.
Every now and then, we meet a GRE test taker who completely redefines how preparation should be done. Most GRE students spend weeks mastering concepts before they even touch a mock test. But Mitra did the exact opposite. He built his entire prep around mocks, analyzing, improving, and repeating. And the result was a phenomenal 333 with 167 in quant and 166 in verbal, all while managing a full time job. Hi, I'm Sejal, and in this episode of GRE Success Talks, we'll explore Mitra's unconventional yet incredibly effective approach, how taking mock tests almost every week became his biggest strength. And obviously, stay till the end because we're going to discuss Mitra's top three tactical tips to crack a GRE if you have like a tight timeline. So, hi Mitra, welcome to GRE Success Talks.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to be here. How are you
Awesome. So,
doing?
okay, tell us a little about yourself. Give us a professional background.
Sure, yeah. I'm Mitra Barve, like she mentioned. I'm 22 years old. I work as a data scientist in Pune, and I just graduated actually, batch of 2025 as a engineer, and I'm a master's in data science aspirant for in the coming years. Yeah. Other than
Awesome.
that, with my free time, I like playing all sorts of sports. I played state level basketball for my school, so that's there. Yeah,
Wow. Okay, so you're a both a studious person and a sports person all in one.
yeah, I try.
Awesome.
I try.
Okay. So, I was looking at your mock tests and they have sort of been like a cornerstone of your preparation, right? Unlike
Right.
like so many GRE students who kind of learn the concepts first, they learn and grill their concepts first and then sort of begin taking the mocks. You did the exact opposite. Yeah. Like barring the
Right.
first couple of weeks, I think your entire prep was based on mocks. So could you tell us more about that approach? Why did you think this was important and why did you think like a mock based prep was more helpful to you and more fruitful?
So yeah, I'd start off with a disclaimer that it is honestly because of my background that I was kind of convinced that my quant and my verbal foundations were
Mhm.
already at a decent level. Because I did 4 years of engineering and I did science back in school. Plus, I studied in an English medium school. So because of that, both my quantitative and verbal skills were up to par. I
Mhm.
was of the opinion that I'll probably just have to go back and revise some of those things in order to get them back to the level which I wanted it to be.
Correct.
And we talk about things like a diagnostic test, right? So when you talk about your GRE, you want to do a diagnostic mock test first. So I just ended up giving that at the start of my prep in order to figure out what level I am at,
Mm-hmm.
right?
All right. So what was that diagnostic like? What did you diagnose from the first mock that you gave?
Right. So I actually got this subscription service for my studies, and they have these practice tests, free practice tests, three of them, which you can give to kind of get a feel for where you are. So I got a 318, I think, in my first mock, and that was like a 162 quant and 156 verbal, which basically told me that my quant is at an average level. I mean, you would expect that I would want more. And my verbal is in some way lacking in some things. Maybe it's my time management, maybe it's my vocabulary, and I'll need to improve on that. That was my takeaway from the first mock test.
Got it. Got it. And what was like your approach after you saw this? What did you think? What was your first step? And then how did you go from there?
Right. So what actually ended up happening was I gave the first mock test, and that was also the first month of me starting like a full time job right after college. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. So
okay.
I kind of got caught up in this, whole work thing, and I didn't end up
Uh-huh.
having any time in the first month at all. So yeah, but I just had this analysis in my head, and I was like, once I start getting some more time, I will
Mhm.
get back into this. So that was how the first month of my prep actually went.
I
Yeah.
think which is why from the mocks that I could see, the gap between your first and the second mock was almost a month.
Yes.
Um, which is, I think, this was the reason why, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. This is exactly
All
why.
right. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So, so you mentioned that you would take like a constant and rigorous review of each mock once you're done with the mocks, and only then you would decide, your course of action and what you want to do next. So what was your review process like? What did you used to do? Did you used to like mark your mistakes, mark difficult questions, mark your weaknesses or something like that, and like what was your approach?
Right. So actually, the reason I went ahead with this mock approach was because, like I said, I thought my foundations were already pretty solid, and I figured that I will have to just get used to the exam feeling and get a feel for how it goes. You know, the timing, the sections, whether it's hard, whether it's easy, right? So because of that, I just ended up giving a lot of mocks. And after a couple of mock tests, I devised a sort of solution based on my own thought process as well as some stuff I saw on the internet about how to review a mock, right? So what I used to do is basically, when you're going through the mock, when you're going through the test, you should try to categorize the question in your head as whether I'm sure of this, or I'm unsure of this, or I have no clue, right? And the ones that you are unsure about and the ones you have no clue about, you should mark them. Okay, that's what you do during the test. And once you're done with the test, yeah, you take some time off because it's stressful. So you maybe take some 15-20 minutes off, you go, you go play with your friends, or you play a game or something like that, come back, and then you look at the report. So okay, you have the report in front of you, and in the report there will be a couple of cases going on, right? So there will be some cases where you were sure of the answer but you got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you flag that. Then you were unsure about the answer, you still got it right. You flag that. You were so any unsure ones you still flag, even if you got it right or wrong. And then the ones you had no clue about and you still got right or wrong, you flag those as well. So right, so what you end up doing is you get an idea of, oh, okay, I thought this concept was this, but it actually was that, which is why you got that question wrong. Then the unsure ones, when you're unsure about a concept, it means you don't have the full knowledge, right? You don't know the full extent of what is going on. So
Right.
that's why you flag those. And once you have a sort of repository of questions that you got wrong or you were unsure about, and what you can do is you can look at them and you can figure out, okay, so this question uses this concept, or here I went wrong here because of this.
Mm-hmm.
What this does is basically you have one level at which you are at that mock, and then you're building on that level. So you're reducing your mistakes slowly, slowly, slowly. Yeah. So that's
Got it.
my mock review process.
Awesome. All right. Okay. Now, let's probably get into specific sections and discussing how you prepared for each
Right.
section. Or how are you like performing in the earlier mocks versus how you performed in the actual test, right? So,
Right.
for your verbal, I think your first mock was 156 or something, and then you scored 166 in the actual test. That's
Yeah.
almost like a 70th percentile to like a 96th percentile jump. How did it
Yeah.
feel, firstly, to kind of see that actual score in the test?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy actually because if you look at my mock scores, I never got 166 in verbal. Like, I didn't even cross 165 in any of the mocks, right? So actually, that was ridiculous. I was like, wow, okay, because I knew I'd done well on the test, but I just didn't know exactly how well, and that was kind
Mhm.
of validating that yeah, I have done well. Yeah.
I completely get that. So, what was your approach? Like, what was your approach for reading comprehension, for vocab, or for any other like verbal specific question?
Right. So what ended up happening is, since I want to apply for a math heavy course for my masters, I ended up focusing more on the quant side of things for most of my prep because I wanted to get to like a as close to 170 as possible out of 170, and that left me with probably just a week to figure out how I'm going to boost my verbal skills specifically, right? Side by side, of course, I will mention that for like 1.5 months, I was doing this verbal vocab mountain thing. So the subscription service that I had, that I was using, it has this thing called a vocab mountain, where you successively learn maybe 30 words more every day. So you start with 30 words on day one, then you go 60, 90, blah blah blah, all the way up to like maybe 900. I think I got up to maybe 700. And it's kind of gamified. It's interesting. It's flashcards. I used to do it with my friends when we were driving around here and there. So
Oh,
it was
that's
a fun exercise, and I think that
yeah.
helped my vocabulary the most, which is why I had a slight creep in my vocab all the way up to test day. So
Mm-hmm.
that's vocab. Other than that, when you talk about your specific verbal questions, right? So you can divide them into sentence equivalence, text completion, and reading comprehension, right? So when
Yeah.
you think about sentence equivalence, you're supposed to match. Uh, well, okay, the question itself is that you need to figure out two words out of six which match the sentence that is given. So if you want to do that, then the logic that you can use is that these two words will be synonyms. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the key strategy that I used. Like, I did not get to this strategy maybe a month into my prep, but when I got it, it boosted my efficiency like crazy. All you have to do is, when you look at a question like that, you have to figure out, okay, so there's six of these, right? I need to figure out which of them are pairs, which of them are pairs of synonyms, and then I need to figure out which pair of synonyms fits into that sentence correctly. And that helps. Like, that gets you 90% of the way. The rest of it is mostly practice and identifying some anomalies, right? So that's
Yeah.
sentence equivalence. Then for
Mm-hmm.
text completion, honestly, one of the biggest things that will help you here, I mean, this is not something you can achieve maybe in a month or two, but what helped me personally is that I have done a lot of reading over the course of my teens and my, my college years. So any kind of reading, it can be your novels, it can be newspapers, it can be articles about sports or games or anything. What it does is it gets you in this mindset of how English as a language works. it
Correct.
has certain words, it has certain punctuations which mean one thing or the other, right? So for example, if you have and, then that's a word that supports the statement. If you have but, then that's a word that opposes the statement. So these kind of things you need to understand. There are a couple of videos about that on YouTube. They're also there on GregMat, which is the service I was using. And if you get a hold of these concepts, you will have a much better time in your text completion, because the idea is that however big the sentence is, it has to make sense as a whole and not just as parts, but you have to break it down into parts in order to get all those blanks correct. So that's the strategy. And finally, for reading comprehension, actually reading comprehension is the thing that I was struggling with the most. It messes with your time management basically, because
I
you
was
just keep
about to.
reading.
That was
Yeah,
actually one of my questions. Like, was it tiring to read so much and then to kind of answer? Because, of course,
yeah,
it's time to read the whole passage, then read the questions.
correct.
And, of course, it messes with your time for the
Yeah,
particular section.
yeah, absolutely. So that was the main hurdle, I would say, in terms of verbal, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can get through the other questions pretty fast,
Mm-hmm.
but then on when you get to reading comprehension, you kind of lose track of time. You're just like, oh, what am I doing? I'm reading this again and again, and I'm not getting these answers. So
Yeah.
that is the biggest hurdle actually. And
Mm-hmm.
the way I kind of figured it out, first of all, that is the first thing that led me to the whole time management conundrum, because I was not doing time management until maybe I think I gave 9 mocks. Out of that, I think 5 of them I gave without any time management. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just wondering, like, I never end up getting any time to check my answers after the exam, right? And that is something that was costing me a couple of marks here and there as well. So I was like, what is going on? So I looked at RC, and then I realized this is actually messing with my time management. So then you have to
Mm-hmm.
figure out that, okay, I can attempt any question at any time. So I should attempt all the questions that take less time or that don't, mess with the idea of time in my head first, and then I'll
Mm.
get to answer. Because the thing is that even though that question takes maybe 1 or 2 minutes, while some questions might take 30 seconds, it still has the same value, like per mark, as related to the other questions. So technically its value per amount of time you spend is lesser as
Mm.
compared to the other ones. So you do that at the end. That is the first thing, right? And then the
I think
second
that's
thing,
that's the engineer in you that cracked everything out
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
could figure out how to go about this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just start thinking about how can you break this down? How can you have to break it
Yeah,
down into pieces. Yeah.
of
So
course.
that, yeah, yeah.
Good
So that was
strategy.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And other than that, so first thing I would say is, if you can, try to visualize what's going on in the
Mhm.
passage. So that's what I landed on while giving one of the mocks. That if I just try to, okay, so maybe the passage is about volcanoes, okay, and how there are different type of volcanoes. There is n number of passages like this, but let's just take this example. So you have to imagine, like, okay, there is this type of volcano, then there is that type of volcano. It is there in this part of the world, and what it does,
Mhm.
it creates this mental image in your head, like a mind map, which then you can access to get to the answers faster. Because it is completely inefficient कि, okay, I read the passage first, and then I go to the questions, and then I have to go back to the passage to figure out the answers. So that is one thing that helps. And
Mhm.
secondly, if you can, try to go through the questions before you even read the passage. Because
Mm.
what happens then is, if you've gone through the questions, then you have an idea of what to look for when you go through the passage first. And some of the
Yeah,
questions might be easy, so you can like get them like that, and you don't waste time going through the passage again and again.
got
So yeah,
it.
that would help me.
Awesome. I think that's great strategy for verbal. And like to the audiences, like if you're finding this discussion so far insightful, and if this all the tips that he's given so far are helpful, don't really forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, because we'll keep bringing such talks to you and such great insights for you. So, okay, moving on to the quant section, which was what you were aiming for. I
Right.
think you started with sort of a 162 in the first mock to a
Yes.
167. So like take us through your whole approach for quants like you did for BA.
Right. So the target, I'll just say it off the bat, the target was to get as close to 170 as possible, because I'm applying for a math heavy or a technical heavy course. So
Yes.
that's what you have to aim for, right? So I tried to get to as close to 170 as possible, and I ended up getting a 167 in my final test. And yeah, so my approach was basically, uh, I knew all the concepts that were being asked, because I had my, school level maths, my junior college maths, and my college level maths. So I knew the concepts, but what had happened is, over the past 4 years, because of, coding and all the other stuff that you have to do, you start forgetting these concepts, right? You don't really remember them, you haven't practiced them. So the best thing you can do is, you can go through all the concepts individually, one by one. Not, you don't have to study them, but you have to try to get an idea of, okay, where do I stand on this concept? Do I know it? Do I not know it? Do I need to, are there some things that I'm missing here? And for that, like, again, I use this thing from Greg Matt. It's called Quant Mountain. It is basically a set of all the concepts that are asked in the GRE one time or the other, and then you can just go through all of them, and try to figure out, oh, okay, am I good at this or not? And then you can solve some questions and try to figure out. That is one thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the second main thing, because of my experience with reading comprehension, I realized is that, when you look at a technical thing like maths, you have a lot of space for errors, silly misses, right? Where
Yeah.
you missed a step, or maybe uh, if the question, if the answer is 42.8, and you accidentally ended up selecting 4.28, that is something that happens, right?
Yeah.
So one of the most important things is that you have to manage your time. The exam is set up in a way that, for each section, so of course this is something you have to mention, in quant you have your you have a section first, which is medium level, and then based on how you do in that section, you have your next section, which can be easy, medium, or hard, right? So for each section, the exam is set up in a way that you have time at the end to go through all your questions again. You can go through them again. You won't be able to solve them again, obviously, but you will have time to go through what you're answering. And that is one of the key things. That's why you need your time management. That's why you need to have a strategy that, okay, I'm going to solve these types of questions first, these next. Similar to verbal, there is another thing in quant, which is numerical entry. So you don't have options, you have to type in the answer. And because you don't have options, you don't have an idea of where the answer might land, the ballpark of the answer. And because of that, you have to solve the entire thing like you used to do in school, and that takes up a lot of time. And in the same way that reading comprehension is the same value as the other questions, but it takes more time, same thing here. It takes more time, but it's the same value, so you should probably do that at the end. So that's just one of the few tricks. Yeah, so that is mainly it. Make sure you have time to you know recheck your answers, so that you don't lose marks to like silly misses. You
Yeah.
chose the wrong answer, you didn't do one step, something like that. I struggled with that, actually. I have struggled with that my whole life. So you have to give some time to yourself to check. Yeah.
So would you say the 3 points that you're short of from the perfect 170 was because of silly mistakes, or was it because the actual test was harder, or was it fatigue that took over you, or something?
So that's interesting, actually. You'd think that that was what happened, but surprisingly, that I'm sure that 167 was because of an anomaly. So what used to happen is, in my mock tests, whatever I gave, usually I would know the answer, or know what the answer should be for all the questions. Like, you have 12 questions in the first section and 15 questions in the second section, and I would be able to go through all 27 of them, knowing ki, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be, this is how it's supposed to be. I knew all the concepts. And then I would lose marks here and there on silly misses, or mostly just silly misses, or I didn't get time to solve. So if you take a look at my mock scores, I scored like 168 and 169 also in a couple of mocks. So that was because of that. And what happened in the actual exam, I think, is that one of the questions in the hard section, I did not know the concept. That was the
Okay.
anomaly that happened in the real test. So that is why I think I landed at 167 instead of the perfect 170.
Oh. But so is it like you sort of selected a few concepts that you wanted to brush upon more, or was it just by fluke? Did you miss this one particular concept that actually came in the actual test?
Yeah, yeah. I think it must have been by fluke, because I gave so many mocks, I came across various concepts, right? And since because of my mock review approach, I was able to figure out, yeah, like, I'm bad at this concept, or I'm good at this concept, right? So maybe I think it just flew under the radar for me. You know how when you're giving your university exams or your college exams, there are like these past year papers. So you look at those past year papers to figure out, oh, this is something that might come into today's paper or tomorrow's paper. And
Yeah.
then sometimes the examiners, googly, they're like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
something that has never been asked, and now we'll ask it. So that it was kind of
Okay.
like that.
Got it. So, was there like some sort of a particular strategy with which you approached your concept learning? So, was it like, I know these concepts, so I'll touch them later and do the ones that I'm not really familiar with because I've not studied them in like such a long time? Or was it like the opposite of it? That, okay, these are concepts I know, so let me just quickly get done with them and then move on to the ones that I don't know? What was your approach like?
So it was the first one. Actually, because of my job, and actually, like, the way my routine was set up, I used to go to work, and then I used to come back home, and I used to go to the gym also after that. And after the gym, I would have dinner, and then I would sit down to study. So I knew I had to be as efficient as possible in my preparation. So what I decided was that, yeah, if I know this concept, and if I have gotten none or minimal questions wrong related to this concept, I won't even touch it. So I
God.
didn't even look at those concepts, and I focused simply on what my weaknesses were.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the things key. You have to uh, figure out your weaknesses and try to reduce your weaknesses as much as you can
Mm-hmm.
before testing.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's now discuss briefly what your study routine was like before
Right.
we jump into the actual test day experience. Okay, so what was your general study routine in these like 1.5 months of preparation? You had a full time job, like you mentioned, you would go to the gym. So, how would you manage your studies, your time, your job, and everything else in between?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so like I mentioned, my routine was pretty much job, gym, and back. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I used to get maybe an hour or two after my dinner to work
Mm-hmm.
or to study. And so one of the most important things is consistency. uh, I'm not that great with consistency, but I had just had to push myself to be consistent. So the thing I was consistent about is the GregMat word mountain, vocab mountain. Like I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, you have to go through a
Yeah.
bunch of words, and you have to go through an incremental amount of words every day.
Correct.
And that's what I used to do every day. I used to just, maybe if it's lunch break at the office or I'm just sitting at the desk doing nothing. So then I
Mm-hmm.
used to just go through that word list. Yeah, I know this word. Yeah, I know this word. This one I don't know. Okay, what's the meaning of this word, right? How do you use it in a sentence? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of thing you can't integrate the entire process of studying into your day, but this is the kind of thing which you can. So thankfully for me, I'm kind of interested in like learning new words and stuff. So it played to my strength. So this is my personal experience. If you are the same, then
Mm-hmm.
it will help you also. So just sit there, look at the words, figure out what it means. If you don't know, you don't know, right? And that
Okay.
helps. That is the first thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I was able to fit the verbal part of it into my day. And during the during the weekdays, I would say I got most of my work done on the weekends. I In that 1 or 2 hours the before you sleep, you're not that productive, honestly. So I would just try to go through some concepts, solve some questions here and there, look at some videos. So a you have a ton of good videos on YouTube. I'm sure GRE Prep Club also has great videos on this topic, and also the subscription service that I used. So just look at some videos, try to figure out what is one thing you can do when you're going through this phase, right? Uh, Try to figure out what is the most impactful thing you can do. So doing words is it's an incremental thing. You're doing 1% every day. But okay, you have an hour. What is the most impactful thing that I can do today in order to, get a better score in the next mock that I do? That is what I used to think whenever I got time. And that usually resulted in some videos that would give more insight into how the questions are based or how the
Mm-hmm.
uh, structure of the exam is, that type of stuff. So that was during the weekday, and on the weekend I mainly gave the mocks. On Saturday or Sunday I would give the mock, and if I gave it on Saturday, then I would do the review on Sunday, and if I
Mm-hmm.
gave it on Sunday, then I would just like I try to get the review done, but yeah, it's tough
Yeah.
sometimes. So you have to. It goes to Monday sometimes, go to Tuesday sometimes. Yeah.
All
So that's
right.
how.
So, at any point in your preparation, did you think that okay, maybe now is the right time where I should take an off from office and I should really just focus on studying? Like, no, 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 I can't afford to do that. I'm going to have to manage both at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, so the thing is that since I'm a fresher, we are, how can I say this? We are overworked sometimes, and sometimes we are underworked.
Uh huh.
In my case, I'm in a sort of startup type situation. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
I was either working a lot, where I used to go to office, come back, and work in the evening as well, or I was working very minimal hours during the day also. So
Got it.
that kind of balanced it out. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens, we don't really get too many leaves per quarter. So what I did was I had to manage those leaves properly, and I figured that the way it is going. So yeah, my test was on a Monday, so that also helped that I had the weekend before that Monday, and I just took an off on the Friday before that test, because I was like, let me just take a step back from work, get into this whole.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
that's what I.
All right. Okay. So now let's get on to the exact exam day. And let's talk about what your experience was on the day of the exam. Actually, let's talk from the Friday that you took off.
Yeah.
What was going on in your head? What were you thinking? What was happening? Give us all the details.
Okay. So yeah, I took the Friday off, and Friday I was just a little stressed, honestly, because you get that stress that, yeah, I have studied for this, I have worked for this, but then what if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
And then you have to go back and give it again, and that's a big thing, right? So that's what I was thinking about on Friday. So but yeah, I just kind of forced myself to go through some strategies. Like I said, I didn't have time to get go through the verbal strategies for maybe a week before my exam. So that is what I was doing on Friday, and I was doing a little practice. And then what I did was Saturday I gave my last mock. So I read on a couple of forums online that you should just try to give a mock, no stress, a couple of days before your exam. And usually, what ends up happening is that mock is pretty similar to the score you would get on test day. And
Mm-hmm.
in a psychological twist, it's like, yeah, so if you give a mock before, it takes stress away from the test day itself, where you're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I will probably perform similarly in the test. So I did that. I did that on Saturday. And it was kind of deflating because the previous mock that I had given, the previous one from Saturday, I had gotten a 332. And on Saturday, I got 330. So I was like, oh, okay. Have we done
Yeah.
something wrong? But I still got a 330. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll just
Mm-hmm.
try to catch up on test day. And yeah, that's what I did. Saturday I did that. I did some review on Saturday as well, and I tried to kind of um, uh, rev- go through the plan basically on Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and that really helps. So you should have a plan of, don't just walk into the center and be like, yeah, I've studied this, or don't walk into the center like, yeah, I'm not gonna do anything, like I'm not gonna get anything. You should have a plan. Ki, okay, I'm going to solve this section first, then I'm going to solve these questions first, and then I'm going to be done with this section maybe with 4 minutes to spare, 3 minutes to spare, something like that. And so visualization is important. So I did that on Sunday, and one of the main things I did was that I knew I was going to be a little anxious the day before. So
Mm-hmm.
I ended up sleeping at like 3 in the morning on Sunday, which is, yeah, it sounds crazy, but I just couldn't get myself to sleep. So I slept very late. But thankfully, I had already foreseen this when I was uh, you have to book the test, right? So I booked it for 2 p.m. So I was like, yeah, this is going to happen. I'll just preempt it. So I booked it
Yeah.
for 2 p.m. Yeah, I slept. I woke up, and when I woke up, I was pretty calm. You know, uh, because at that point you're like, I can't really do any more. So that sort of
Yeah.
calm set in. I was like, yeah, whatever I've done till now,
They're
I've done.
good. Yeah.
After this, it's up to God.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Got it.
I did that. I meditated for a bit, kind of visualized that, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go into the test. You have to like get your passport verified and stuff. So you do that. You get write some stuff down. And one of the things you have to think about is, yeah, okay, so my test is done. Now I have to
Mm-hmm.
send these scores to these universities, right? So which universities do I send them to? So that is something I was thinking about. And yeah, then I just went and I gave it. And thankfully, by the faith in God or whatever, it went the way I thought it was gonna go.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, do want to highlight here that your score on the actual test was like your highest from all the mocks that you did, all the
Right.
mocks that you gave. So, like a lot of students struggle to sort of perform their best on the actual test day, right? So, do you think
Mhm.
there was some like secret sauce you had that that helped you, perform your best on the actual day and score your highest?
Yeah. Okay, this will. I don't know how many people believe in this and all. So I'm not particularly religious, but one of my friends actually told me that you should go to the temple. It makes you feel calm. It makes you feel in control. And I tried that a couple of times, and it actually did help. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I do that before I go to the test center? And I actually
Mm-hmm.
went to the temple and I spent about 5-10 minutes there, just trying to get myself in the zone. And yeah, I mean, it works. So that,
Sweet.
I guess, that's my secret sauce. Yeah.
Awesome, got it. All right, so okay, talking about secret sauce. So sort of to end our conversation on
Yeah.
on an insightful note.
Yeah.
And the thing that probably our audiences are waiting for, the
Right.
top three um, top tactical tips that you would like the audience to
Right.
have for anyone who sort of wants to crack a GRE but has a very small prep window, say like a month or so,
Hmm.
similar to you. What would
Hmm.
your three top tactical tips be for them?
Yeah. So actually, I have implemented these myself, so I can just I can verify them myself. First thing you want to do is you want a target. You can't just be like, yeah, I'll just see what happens. I'll study and I'll see how much score I get. So you want a target. You want, okay, so do you want 320? Do you want 325? Do you want 330? More. You have to set that target. What that does, it switches a psychological switch in your head that, yeah, I have to work for this. So that's the first thing, right? Second thing is just following up to this is that you have to, like, this is actually something I learned during this journey, is you have to go for gold, honestly. So if you might have heard that saying, yeah, you have to aim for the moon so that you land among the stars. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very, very true. You have to aim for more than what your target is, because that what that does is it tricks your brain into trying to get to that, so that even if you don't, you will still land among the stars. So this is what I implemented, and there are a couple of good videos on this in on YouTube and on GregMat. There is a series called "How Can You Get a Three?" So you want to get a 340 6.0. So yeah, that's one more thing. I got a 5 on my essay out of 6. So even that was, I will partially attribute to this, that you have to aim for gold. You have to aim for, I aim for 340 6.0, and because of that, even though I didn't get that, I still landed at 333, which is a great score. And it does leave you with this feeling like, oh, I could have done better. But then you just discard it. You're like, you know what? I did achieve my target. And that's great,
Yeah.
right? So that is the second thing. And the third thing, which directly ties into my mock strategy, basically, is that you have to continuously prove to yourself that you're capable of something, right? So, uh, okay, so if you learn some concepts and you're able to solve some questions, you won't, because the main thing is that you want to have belief in yourself. You want to take it easy and trust that, yeah, I can do this. But where does that trust come from? It comes from proving to yourself that you can do this. So that is why I ended up giving all these mocks, because I was like, yeah, I feel like I can do this, but how do I prove to myself, quantitatively? uh, Again, this is probably the engineer in me talking. That yeah, that how do I prove to myself that I am capable of getting a 325, a 330, a 330, more than that. So yeah, just try to get some sort of proving mechanism. It might be mocks, it might be something else, but that will
Mm.
definitely help. It will boost your
Awesome.
belief. Yeah.
Yeah, I think these three tips were definitely very helpful for me personally. Very motivational, very inspirational, I would say. And I hope the same was for our audience. And this entire conversation was very, very helpful for them. There's one comment in the chat which says, which source did you use for verbal and quant, which you did specify, but just for audiences, could you let them know again the sources for your verbal and your quant?
Yeah. So mainly I studied from GregMat, GREGMAT. Uh, that is actually quite helpful. And for the from that you can get all sorts of resources for your verbal and your quant. One of the things I would like to point out is try if you can to buy the official ETS mock tests. They have the most accurate, or near accurate to the real thing. The questions, I'm talking about the questions, sorry. The verbal and the quant questions, which are the most accurate or most similar to the real thing, and that will help you the most when you're trying to get a gauge for the exam itself.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I think this was a very, very fruitful conversation, if I might say. This is very helpful for me, and I hope the same for the audience. And thank you so much for being with us, sharing all these tips with our audiences, and taking out the time for this. Thank you so much, Mitra. It was
Yes.
lovely chatting with you and getting inspired from you and your score.
Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a
thank you
pleasure.
everyone for joining here today, tonight. And yeah, please do hit the like button if this was insightful for you. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye.
Good luck to everyone. Bye bye.